Welcome, everyone. This is our monthly or bi-monthly, I guess you would say, session on marketing topics with the amazing, talented, and incredibly fantastic Mel and Beck. ran out of words. I'm sorry about that.
A few too many superlatives in there, Bruce.
Yeah, I got to have some things written down. All right, so let's jump into this, guys. I'm just going to do my usual go in a corner and listen to your amazing stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about social media reviews and what happens when you, I guess, predominantly what happens when you get a bad one and how to deal with it, that type of thing. What an amazing topic, Mel. Thanks. I'm not sure it was Mel or Beck that suggested this one. Yeah, but it's a hot topic, and I don't think it's just a hot topic now. I think it's always a hot topic, and it certainly is something that's come up recently in our group. So what a great topic to bring up, and I'm really looking forward to this. So without any more rambling from me, take it away, ladies.
So this is, as Bruce said, it's been a hot topic for a very long time, and that's why I thought it was important to sort of swing back around and have a look at this. If you have a look, there's lots of places online that you can leave reviews, and reviews are now very important. So if we actually go back 15 years ago, the term Google was added to the dictionary. Why? Because everybody Googled things. Long gone are the days where if you were younger and you were wanting to know how to spell a word and parents sent you to go and look in the dictionary, you don't do that anymore. You Google it, or you ask Siri, or you ask Alexa, or you ask some sort of online tool, and it will help you get there. So this is really filtered down into businesses, and businesses these days need to be aware that if they mess up, or they give somebody the wrong meal or something like that, that's going to go online and somebody's going to leave a review. Some people are going to get engaged with that. There's lots of keyboard warriors out there that like to silently sit and plug away and think that they're doing the right thing by them, but not by the business. So this is something as a business that you really need to be conscious of and on top of. So the places that we can leave reviews, wrong button, technical.
There we go.
Some of the places that are relevant to you that people leave reviews are on, again, Google. Google got to change its name and its place and things. Before it used to have Google pages. It's now called Google My Business. Facebook reviews. Facebook at times actually allow you to turn the review function on and off. Other times it leaves it permanently on. House is another place, and other directory listings. Bruce was talking to us about a business, which you might want to say something here, Bruce, a business in Queensland called 2 Clicks, where he actually pretty much dissolved his business because of scathing reviews that he left and the way that he responded to reviews online, and tried to sue Whirlpool. So there's other online forums that you can leave reviews, and that do come up in Google searches when you do that. So I think what we're trying to say here is it is very important to respond to your reviews, and what we're going to talk to you about today is how and when to respond to them and why. So if we go back to sort of Google, what's the next one? If we go back to sort of the Google, people these days, if they say hear your name, now that may not be physically here, that may be they've seen somebody comment on an online forum, or somebody has suggested your name, or they've seen an ad of yours online. People are going to say Google your business. So they're going to want to look at your website. But if you've got your Google My Business set up, and people are going to see your Google reviews, then people are going to be able to see what other people have and their feedback. Similarly with Facebook, people use Facebook as a Google. So they, again, can see or hear about your business from somewhere, and they go to Facebook and they type in your name, and they are very much able to see your review. So what do you do with your review? So our recommendation really is respond to every review, whether it's a simple thank you. It is showing people that you are online, you're present, you're not just a set and forget type business, and it gives you credibility. So there are times as I talked about, the people are going to sit there and be keyboard warriors and write nasty reviews. And so Mel's going to tell you some really good tips on how to deal with that.
So the first thing we want to say is that if you get a good review, then we want to make sure that you share that love. So you want to utilize that review and share it across every platform that you have. So we want to make sure if you've got a Facebook profile, if you've got an Instagram profile, if you've got a LinkedIn profile, if you're tweeting, if you're doing any of the other platforms, you want to make sure that you take that positive review and you want to share it all around. So number one, that should be the first thing that you do after you say thank you to the person who's left you the nice review is either screenshot it or work it up into a post or whatever. In our industry, what you would often do is match it with a photo of the project so that your potential other customers can see what the people are thanking you for. But in general, we want to make sure that you don't just say thank you and then do nothing. We want to make sure that that's a top of line item that everyone does straight away, is to make sure that you share that love. Do you want to add anything before I move on?
No, well, Canva's a great tool too if you want to pick and take their review and add it to a post. I do have to say actually one thing. Testimonials and reviews on websites are a bit of give and take. You get more credibility from a review from a Google account or from a Facebook review because it's actually linked to a person's profile. You can put testimonials and things, and they are good. Quite often, it's better to have video testimonials on your website, whereas just simply putting the words is a nice touch, but it has less credibility than it does from an authorized, approved platform.
Because you could just be making it up.
Oh, look, so many people do.
And lots of people do. Yeah, let's not be, yeah. So let's talk about the thing that really bothers everybody. We've got quite a few clients who have been very resistant to even having the review function turned on, because that is the negative reviews is the number one thing that they're worried about. And it's not an unreasonable concern. Let's face it. It's something that you do have to be conscious of, because negative reviews can hurt your business and they can be difficult to deal with. But I think the first thing that you need to do is look at what is happening with this review. Was the review warranted or not? So before you jump to respond, take a little bit of time to have a look into the feedback that the person has left for you. So was this person actually a client? You know, make sure that someone's not created an alias, or that the person leaving you the review isn't a disgruntled competition. So you want to make sure that you ask your staff, look into exactly what happened from their perspective. So make sure that you check the facts before you respond.
I'll give a little bit of an example here, if I could.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a really good point, because I've had one that I remember anywhere that I've seen. I've had one bad review, and it was on Google My Business. Now, I don't really use Google My Business as much as I should, but
it's all right. We do for you, Bruce.
yeah, you got it all covered, right? But when that review came up, I didn't know this person. I never even heard, like, I had no idea who it was. So I did some research, like Mel said, and I discovered that we'd never even worked with them. They were not even on the books anywhere. Took a little while, it was like, you had to look back as far as you could. But as it turned out, it was just some person randomly searching on the internet, doing something, some crazy person just giving bad reviews randomly. Yeah. And as soon as we responded and said, we've checked our research, we can't find you anywhere in our database. It looks like we've never done any work with you. Please tell us the date and time that we did the job, and we'll look into it, they magically disappeared.
Yeah.
And then you can, I think what we did was we reported that review to be removed, and it was removed.
Yeah, actually, I was just saying to Mel, I thought I'd raise that. Removal of reviews is actually very difficult because it is generally linked to an account. So where we've had a lot of success removing reviews are people that have created a Facebook account and had it for days or weeks, and it's not really shown any other action but to go online and put things out there.
Yeah.
It is a very big battle with Facebook to remove reviews.
Yeah.
Very big. Because again, unless they've got an account, you can go back and forth. And I think this is where Mel's going to dive into now. If you respond in a way that upsets the person that has written the review, it can just go downhill.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 clicks. That's a really...
And remove yourself for a little while.
Yeah.
Don't respond straight away. Have you already said that?
Not yet.
The power of the pause.
Yes.
Power of the pause. I'll pause.
Yeah. So as Beck said, if you do feel that the review was unwarranted or has been posted by someone who's not a client, you can report them. But the main thing that you want to do there is also acknowledge and add your comments, because we know that these platforms can be notoriously slow in removing negative reviews. Yes. So I think you don't want to leave it there hanging. You need to acknowledge. And I'm going to give you some wording in the next couple of slides. I'll give you some standard wording that you can save to your system, and you can just utilize that if you feel like you're in this situation. But we also need to talk about what happens if you genuinely have made a mistake. What happens if your business or someone in your company has genuinely upset a client, and the client is maybe not entirely correct, but at least is in a position to be making this negative review and not be untruthful. So you really need to have a look at that. Now, the bottom line is getting a negative review is about 1 million times easier than getting a positive review. It's just the psychology of, it's like they say, a woman scorned. It is literally the psychology. If someone feels hard done by, they are far more motivated to go and find your profile and leave you a negative review than if they feel positive about you. It's sad because we would all like the positive reviews more than the negative reviews. So first of all, and I'm going to give you some wording on the next slide, but just as a general piece of advice, if a client has left you a review that is warranted, don't respond in anger and don't try and deflect, because it will just come across as you making excuses. It will also potentially involve a very long discussion then with the client as you go back and forth arguing about who was right. And let me tell you, the business will never win in a situation like that. You definitely do not need to write a novel. You don't want to air your dirty laundry online. So your best practice is a short acknowledgement and a request for them to contact you so that you can address those issues offline. If the person was a client, but you feel that the review was unwarranted or doesn't adequately address their role in the situation, it is much trickier. I mean, you've got to remember there's always 2 sides to any story. And sometimes clients will sign off on things and then swear blue that they never did. And you've got to be careful, because as much as you may feel justified in calling them out, you're never going to win if you play the blame game. The company literally will lose every single time, and you do risk igniting the flames of a war that you simply can't win. So here's a couple of example statements that I would suggest you just save to your system. So the top one: "Hi, John, thanks for your feedback. We're genuinely sorry you've had this experience, as it's not in keeping with our usual high standards. Please reach out to us via email or phone or DM us so we can talk about how we can resolve the situation." So that's a great way to acknowledge a client where they actually were a client and there was an issue. So you've acknowledged it, you've apologized, you have said that it's not in keeping with your usual high standards, which is kind of like a little bit of an underhand way to say to people, no, we really are a good quality company, but you've taken it offline. So you haven't encouraged them. You haven't brought up any of the details about what happened. You haven't answered any of the allegations that they've made, but you've acknowledged it. And I think you can't remove those sort of negative reviews, but I think acknowledgements and responses such as this go a long way towards diffusing when people are reading your online reviews, because no one never makes a mistake. I don't think people in this day and age expect a business to be 100% all the time. So it's not about the fact that you've never made a mistake. It's about the fact that maybe you did, but here's what you did with it, or here's how you dealt with it. So that top wording there is the best way. Obviously you can change up the words and every situation is unique. So you need to deal with it in terms of what's actually happened and what the allegation actually is. But something generic along those lines is your best form of defense. If you get a negative review that you can't report because it is true. Underneath there, I've given you some wording for if you get a negative review where you don't believe the person was a client or you think it's being posted under an alias. Hi, John. Thanks for your feedback. We'd like to try to resolve this issue with you as we've checked our records and there are always two sides to any story. Would you please contact us by phone or email or DM us so we can discuss further? You can also call them out and say, we can't find a record of you in our system. Again, it kind of depends on what they've said in their review. You might have to change up the wording a little bit. But again, reply, acknowledge, take it offline, because the last thing you want to end up doing is having a long and involved discussion with them online about their issue, because it does not matter what you say. They will pick the one little thing in your reply that you haven't quite stated properly, probably because you're writing it in a hurry and you're feeling a bit flustered. And then they will use that to continue and keep it going. And that's the last thing you want. You want to shut it down as soon as possible.
And if they do respond after you've put such a statement out or responded using some of Mel's examples, don't feel the need you need to respond back again. You've already addressed it. You've already said, let's take this offline. There is no need to reply beyond that.
Or you can just add a small issue and said, we'd love to talk to you about this. Please contact us. And just keep reiterating that, because not only does that say, look, we're happy to talk to you about it. It basically says, look, we're more than happy to work with you. We're happy to have the conversation. But online on a review platform is not the place to have that conversation. So you're not saying we disagree with you. You're not saying we think you're a horrible person. You're not, putting forward any allegations of your own. What you're saying is, we'd like to talk to you so we can try and resolve this issue. So it's just the best way, acknowledge, reply, offline. Really, it's those three, very basic steps. So, of course, the best way to counter negative reviews is to try to overbalance the scales or bring the scales back into balance with positive reviews. So this is the part where we talk about how you can have a foolproof system of asking for reviews and prompting your customers who are going to say nice things about you to get a review. And like I say, this path is a path much harder to travel, unfortunately, but there are a few things that you can do. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a really foolproof system in place to ask for a review from every customer. So as part of your closing a job process, one of those steps should be to send an email to the customer asking them for a review and including links to all your different platforms where a review is possible. So a link to your Google My Business page, a link to your Facebook page, a link to your house profile, or any other of those directory platforms that you might be using. So again, it doesn't need to be a long and involved email, and I can help you with some wording, very short. And the other thing is, make sure that's the only thing in the email. Don't wrap that up in 50 million other pieces of information about warranties or anything else. You want to make sure that it is a very clear request. So make sure that you're not assuming that the client can read between the lines and is going to understand that what you actually want is for them to go and make a review. You need to be very clear. Dear John, we've so much loved working with you on your project. We're so glad to hear that you're happy with the end result. Small businesses such as ours really rely on reviews to help us, and we would really appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to pop over to some of these locations and leave us a review. Thanks so much in advance. We really appreciate you. And obviously you add in, so something like that, but really clear, really concise, don't waffle on, make sure they know exactly what you're expecting them to do.
The other thing too is with a lot of the flat pack clients that we're working with in GPS, we've actually designed a flyer. So when did you write that?
Yeah.
We've actually designed a flyer so that when the flat pack goes out, it's actually got all of the social links on it. There is nothing stopping you from creating something like that if you're handing over some final paperwork when the job's finished. Having something visually in front of them is always a good prompt to maybe go, actually, I really like my new kitchen. I'm going to go online and I'm going to leave a review.
I think too, there's a part of the process, like there's a time, and that your window is quite small, and it is during that closing process because you've just finished a job. So a customer's potentially lived through a renovation, which we all know is a very stressful thing, but it's done, it's finished. You've walked them through the final product, you've handed over your hamper or whatever other process you have in terms of, saying thank you for your business or whatever. And that's the time. It's brand new. It's spanking. They haven't messed it up yet. They haven't, put grease on the splashback or done anything else. And they love it and they love you. And that's your window. So that's why I'm saying it needs to be done as part of closing off a job. Don't ask for a review before you finished, because they won't do it. But at that point, before they've started to kind of move on with their lives, because let's face it, everyone is busy. So before they've started to kind of move on and the renovation is becoming a distant memory, because don't forget, the psychology of living through something stressful is to forget about that as soon as possible so you can move on. So that's where your window is very, very small. But that's why if you make it a part of your process of closing a job, and most businesses have a 3 or 4 or 5 steps to close a job and finish off in terms of their internal paperwork. So make that email a part of that closing process. Sometimes clients unbidden will send you an email telling you about their great experience. That's fantastic, but you can't really do much with that. So this is where you would respond to that email and you would say, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to write to us. Small businesses such as ours really rely on reviews. And here are some links to some places, you can cut and paste from the review that you emailed us. And we'd really appreciate you doing that. Now, look, the bottom line is a lot of people will go, that's a great idea. I'll do that. And it's very difficult, and you can't really, keep going at them about it. It is very difficult. Sometimes you just really have to live with the fact that they've emailed it to you. You can pop it up on your website. You can still use it on your socials. It just won't go into that kind of pool of reviews that you've got. But those are kind of our best tips to maximize your chances of getting as many positive reviews as possible. You can also do call outs on your socials to say, you know, and if you're doing EDMs or if you're doing any kind of regular newsletters or anything like that, then that's also a great place. You know, have you worked with us recently? We'd love you to go and review us, and here's our links. So there are ways that you can do other prompts as well. But honestly, that point in time where you've closed a job, that's your best kind of chance of getting that person to go and leave you a review.
One thing I would
actually had a really great comment on the Facebook Live. It is actually really good internally with your team for them also to hear that feedback, for them to hear that the client is really happy. It may have been a huge job. There may have been some, things you really had to tackle and work around for that job. Having your team being acknowledged for the hard work that they have done from the customer is quite different than hearing it from you. So that's also another really great positive. Thanks, Linda. Yeah,
there's a shift, and I think I'll sort of jump in here and just sort of talk about where Linda's going with this. That it's kind of important to put this on the table, that we always talk about people in the factory getting bored with, putting kitchens together, being proud of this thing that comes off their bench. And although that's true, we want them to be proud of the work. We just want them to make it to the standard that it's expected to be at, the quality standard. What we actually want them to be proud of is the results the customer is getting. So without actually making that part of the business process, without actually making that result that happens on every single job where the customer is giving you feedback and reviews, saying that, I love this kitchen that you put in. It makes my life so much better. We're really proud of our home now. Now we're inviting people over to our house, whereas before we were embarrassed of our kitchen. Those sorts of things for your team in the factory are going to shift their thinking away from, focusing on shuffling around their cabinets on the floor and wasting time, being proud. Of course, we want them to be proud of them, make sure it's right, but we want them to be connected to the customer. And Hamish would also have some input here in lean, in that lean is about a connection to the customer, because the customer is the only person that will identify value, because value is defined as whatever the customer will pay for. So paying for something doesn't mean you've already bought something and you're paying for it again. Paying for it sometimes means giving a good review so that their network of friends will hear the review, and you might get somebody else in their network to pay for another kitchen. So value is, identified purely in the eyes of the customer, and that review will articulate value in the best way possible.
As an aside, it's not kind of necessarily to do with reviews, but it's also good to ask your customers if you are going to share photos of their project. So say you've sent a nice professional photographer in and you've had a great photo shoot done, and we're going to be sharing those photos on social media or featuring them on your website. It's great to let them know. Send them a copy, or send them a link to the post, or send them a link to the page on the website, and say, hey, we just thought you'd like to see your kitchens up in lights or your projects up in lights, because there's a great chance that they will then share that themselves, which is effectively an awesome review. And they've then become an ambassador for you because they've shared your work out to their network.
There's so many things you can do here. Like you could post, with approval, you could post every single job you did in the month and ask your network to vote on all the kitchens that month. And you could give away, the person that got the most votes, you could give away a free basket or a free wine and cheese hamper or something like that. And everybody else gets second. So there's always a second prize as well, right? You could give away a book by the joinery coach or something.
Oh, I hear there's a good one out.
I heard that, yeah. But talk about engagement and talk about reviews and getting activity and more followers or more leads and likes on your socials. What a great way to do it.
Yeah.
So we were going to open it up at this point and see if anyone had any specific questions or has had any specific experiences that they wanted to kind of run by us and pick our brains about ways to handle things. I'm not sure if have we got many people online, Bruce?
We've got Linda, and I can only see on Facebook, I can see that there's 3 or 4 people in the Facebook, but I'm not sure who they are. So
okay.
There are.
So if you're in the Facebook group and you've got a question, you can type it into the comments section, and we can ask you. But
if you need to know where to find the links to send people to write a review, feel free to ask that, or just drop us a line. Just send us an email or ping us on Facebook, and we can show you the links as to how to get to it. If you don't have Google My Business set up,
let's get it set up. Yes.
Let's talk, because again, it's not something that you need to be highly active on, but people do Google you. It is what it is.
And Google likes to see an active Google My Business page.
I guess here's a question I'll ask you guys, and I'm very confident you're going to have the answer here. We talk about breadcrumbs or footprints, and one of the topics that comes up a lot, particularly for me and talking to new leads, new potential customers, what type of marketing are you doing? And a lot of people in the industry will say, well, I get my work through word of mouth. Then I'll have to explain to them, well, you're not actually getting your work through word of mouth, because if someone said something nice about you, that is definitely not enough inspiration or enough reason for them to just call you and then to say, yes, I'm going to use you to do a kitchen. Those people that have been given word of mouth, told about you from somewhere, they jump onto this, that, and the other thing. Can you maybe talk a few minutes about
Mel's very
so that we're really clear about word of mouth, and what fits into this is reviews, because if they happen to find, let's say, a bad review that you handled well, you'll build trust. But certainly if they find good reviews, and that's going to happen through word of mouth, but it's going to come from your social and all that stuff.
Well, that's the thing too. Quite often we'll have people saying, oh, but I'm not getting any leads.
Yeah.
And then Mel.
So there's been a lot of research done. If we go back, a couple of decades, Yellow Pages was it, right? Maybe some magazine stuff, glossies, but really Yellow Pages was where everyone did their advertising. So you could track much easier because there were really only 1 or 2 sources of advertising available. And so it was very easy to say to people, how did you hear about us? Or, where did you find us?
Yeah.
I found you in the Yellow Pages.
I mean, in the magazine or in the newspaper. Or
unless you forgot, and then you were not happy, Jan. But aside from this, I'm showing my age by knowing that line. But we know there's been a lot of research done now in terms of digital footprint. And we know that most people are not going to find and engage with your business through one single source on its own. So they'll hear about your business somehow. So you might come up in a Google search. They might have heard about you from a friend. They might see a sponsored post that you've put up on one of your socials, or they might see you in a magazine, or any of the other ways. They might have run into you at a home show, maybe where you're exhibiting. So somehow they're going to come in contact with you. That's not enough to get them to contact you and book a job. So they're going to look at your website. They're probably going to follow you, or at least engage with your feed on 1 or more of your social platforms, mostly Facebook and Instagram, but also LinkedIn, depending on what your focus is.
Yeah.
And we also know they might drop in and see your showroom. So they'll engage with some of your showroom staff if you've got one. There are kind of all these touch points that are what lead to a customer deciding to sign on the dotted line and sign a contract with you. But what they're likely to tell you is the last thing, because that's the thing that's in their head. So I did a bit of an experiment a few years ago with a client of ours who said, I don't really understand why I'm doing all this stuff on social media, because I'm tracking my leads and all my leads are coming from my website. And I went, okay, no problem. So I gave them some tips about some extra questions to ask. And it actually turned out that people were seeing them on Facebook and liking their photos on Instagram. But what had happened was, when they were ready to make an appointment, they went to the website to get the phone number to make the phone call. So on that phone call, when someone said, oh, how did you find us? Oh, they say, I found you on the website. because that's exactly what they did. But what they're not telling you about is the journey that they took to get to that point of calling you. And it is very difficult to dig into that, because most customers, they don't get why it's important to you. And they're not really thinking, like, they're not tracking for you. Oh, on Thursday the 31st, I visited their Facebook page. And then on Monday the 2nd, I liked it. So they're not tracking that stuff for you. So what they're likely to tell you, as in how I found you, is the last thing they did before they spoke to you. So you've got to always take that with a bit of a grain of salt. And like I say, there's a lot of evidence that's been done in the digital space where we know that there is almost never a single touch point. We know it is a majority. It's like having a goldfish bowl, and you have to fill that goldfish bowl with all the different things, and the sand and the pebbles and the water and the goldfish and the plant. And that's what makes kind of a cohesive goldfish. You don't just chuck a goldfish in there. You need all that other structure around it.
I also think that there's something missing from the conversation about when we talk about word of mouth being your marketing strategy that a lot of people say. What they're missing is the work they're not getting from the word of mouth that's happened, because the word of mouth is usually that first thing, right? Somebody talked about you, somebody told their sister or their brother or their friend about you, and they go, great, sounds good. And then they go and check you out on social media or your website, and they go, oh man, these guys, I wouldn't want to use them. And they don't call you. So they may very well be an A-grade client that you're not getting word of mouth advertising from, because your stuff out there in the world sucks. And frankly, a lot of people in the industry, it does suck.
Yep.
And that's not them personally.
That's a webinar topic.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is, right?
That social media and your website, they do work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to actually stand on a soapbox and say word of mouth is our marketing strategy, you really have to pay attention to where people are going after word of mouth, because it could be really hurting you, all this stuff that you're not doing.
Very much so.
Yep. I'm just reading Linda's comment. Yes, Yellow Pages. Yes, exactly. But look at Yellow Pages now. I mean, I haven't received the book for years, but look how thin it is.
Lots of things now questioning whether they should stop print altogether.
They're not even getting the traction online anymore.
No.
And the costs that they're charging people and the claims that they make. I know you're not a big fan of sort of the Google AdWords and SEO and things, Bruce, but they are far cheaper and more effective than Yellow Pages. So
give it another 5 years and there'll be no more Yellow Pages.
It's time to go.
Yeah. Linda's actually asked a really good question. What's a nice, simple way that you would recommend for clients to capture feedback? Is there one capture tool or app or hack or something like that?
So there's, over the years, there's been a few tools that have tried to automate that sort of stuff. And the problem is with the integration, because if you look at Google and Facebook and Houzz, all of their platforms rely on the fact that they set a standard for review. So as a business owner, you can't go onto any of those platforms and say, look, Mrs. Jones, write me a nice review. I'd like to load it up, please.
Yeah.
It has to be that. So, and same with like many of the restaurant review services and that sort of thing, they make their reputation because all their reviews have to be linked to a profile, and that profile links back to a person. Yeah. And that is how they weed out things like made up reviews or spam and other things like that. So from their perspective, they don't like third party kind of nudge tools because it's undermining their standards in terms of what they're setting as being the way they're going to collect reviews to maintain the integrity of that review process. Because the whole idea of them having that review process is because they want consumers to genuinely feel empowered to leave positive, neutral, and negative reviews, so that other consumers doing research are able to have a look at it across the board. Yep. And we all do. I mean, I know I do in my own personal life. If I'm looking for something, I will have a look and see if there are reviews of the business or the type of business that I'm looking to engage with. So that's, it would be nice. And there are a few that try to exist, but often what happens is after they've been up for a while, the platforms change their algorithm and then it won't connect anymore. So there was one really good one, I'm trying to remember what it was called, where you could go in and you could list all of your platforms on, and they could write one review, and then it would post that same review to all the different platforms. But again, that's circumventing what the platform wants from its review service. And so they had to discontinue it because they just changed the algorithm so it doesn't work anymore.
There is a way that you can get, depending on what platform you're using for your website, you can have it so that your Google reviews or your Facebook reviews and things actually show up somewhere
on your website.
On your website, and it directly feeds to your Facebook or your Google account.
Yeah, that's going to be some magic WordPress plugin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your favorite, Bruce.
Very good. This is excellent. Some good questions. Linda's got some good questions. Jacques Peters, welcome to the group, Jacques. Jacques, our newest, freshest recruit in GPS.
Welcome.
Been working with Jacques for quite a few years, actually, so it's great to have you here, and good to see that you're getting some value from these conversations. Excellent.
All right.
Just had a comment. Oh, Linda's just saying, yes, the regional areas still use paper copied stuff. That's true, but I think
certainly where the internet is unreliable, print is still going to rule while that's still the case.
Yeah, give the smart tech people enough time and they'll figure that one out too, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Looks like we've exhausted all questions. I'm sure that people that are going to see this in a recorded time frame, I've lost.
I would also add that, if you do have an issue with a review, so say, I don't know, 6 weeks from now, 2 months from now, if you do get a review that's posted and you don't know what to do with it, pop it in the GPS group and tag either Beck or myself. We'll be very happy to give you our opinion or some help on how you can phrase an answer or something like that. Or, if you want to test, say, look, here's some text that I've written to ask for reviews. Can you guys just check it over and make sure it's okay? We're always more than happy to check that sort of stuff. So feel free to use the GPS group there to tag us if you want us to look over anything.
Yeah, look, the power of the community is there, and it's relatively untapped. How do I know this? I'm in a group myself where even today there was a post about a response from a customer that all 900 of us gave some feedback on, and the person posting it said, what would you do if you got a response like this?
Yeah.
And, so far after 2 hours, there's about 40 responses. Yeah. Now, some of it is, run away as far as, those sorts of things. There's two things to this. Those sorts of engagements in a trusted group where the people in it are your tribe, like in the GPS group, you're asking questions of people that have probably experienced that same thing themselves. Yeah. But at the very worst case, we're going to understand, we're going to empathize with you and give you some, don't worry, it's, I've had the same thing myself. So absolutely use the group and ask questions. If you get a bad review or some sort of a questionable review somewhere, post it in the group, cut it out and put it in the group, and let's have some fun with it. But let's also talk about it, because those sorts of things are opportunities as far as I'm concerned. The point that I probably haven't made here, and I've made before, I'll just make it again. The bad review for me is an opportunity, because human nature says that, the people that you're dealing with are smart. Humans are smart. And they know that you're not going to be 100%. It's silly for us to think that I have to have 100% positive reviews. Mm-hmm. I kind of think like when I was integrating CNC machines, I would tell the owner of the machine, maybe it's better if we just run the tool into the bed of the machine now and get over it. Like when you get a new car, just scratch it, right? Just get over it so it's done. And of course they would never do it. But my point was, let's just get over it, because it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
A bad review is going to happen at some point, and your potential lead is going, Wonder what would happen if the worst case scenario happened and they put the kitchen in, it's the wrong color, or the bench top was the wrong profile, or the door handles were wrong, or something like that. I wonder what would happen if that occurred. Everybody on some level before they agree to work with you was thinking that thought.
Yeah.
You'd be crazy to think that they weren't,
Yeah.
because they are. Now, if you provide evidence that says, if the worst case scenario happens and this occurs, here's how we're going to deal with it. Now you've just taken away all of the apprehension they might have of what would happen if the worst case scenario was to occur. They've seen a couple of bad reviews and you've handled them very, very professionally and in a way that they would go, okay, if that was me, that's how I'd like you to handle it. Now you've probably got a sale. So it's an opportunity.
Sorry, Bruce. I genuinely do think that people don't expect a business to have 100% good reviews. I think most people are reasonable and expect that there will be 1 or 2 negative reviews. What they're looking for is, how did you handle it?
I just look for the bad ones, quite frankly. When I want to buy something, like I'll go on Amazon,
Yeah.
and I'll look for the 1 or 2 bad reviews. I probably won't even read the good ones all that much. And if the bad ones are legitimate, like one guy said, I received this thing, it was an electronic thing with a screen, and it was all scratched. And Amazon got on and said, did you peel away the protective coating off the cover? Oh, no, I didn't. Uh-oh. Okay, so a negative review, and it's still on there as a negative review. But the person that responded was very helpful, not abusive, not demeaning, just helpful.
And if we really want to, we can segue into, most negative reviews are going to come from customers that you knew deep down you probably shouldn't have accepted as customers in the first place, because you could tell from the start that they weren't really your ideal customer and they were problem people from the word go. And you probably knew deep down that nothing you did was going to satisfy them. So let's segue that into, if you get your marketing right and you're not just relying on word of mouth, because if you're relying on word of mouth, then you have to take everyone that comes to you, right? Because they've been recommended.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got your marketing right and you're using your attraction marketing principles, then the people that you're attracting to you, that are coming to you and looking for work, should be the people that are most connected to your business and in line with your business. And so that also should work to keep a track, or to lessen the amount of negative reviews that you get.
And it is true, the stronger the relationship you have with your customer, the less likely the severity of something that bad happens is, the less likely that's going to become a huge big blow up. But look, the other side of the coin too is that maybe what you're doing is not good. Maybe you're doing bad work. Maybe some of your employees are being rude to your customers. Maybe that review is warranted.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's still an opportunity for you to say, we reviewed our internal processes and we realized that this, we didn't do this well enough, and we'd like to make it up to you. And as a thing going forward, we're making some change. Maybe that's the case. And it's still an opportunity for you to say, you know what, we actually did suck on this situation and we've got to fix it. So it's good both ways.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. When in doubt, Linda says kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so true. All right. Thanks for this, Mel, Beck, as usual. Amazing topic. Nice and simple.
That's right.
Very, very important and useful.
Indeed.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks again. We'll chat soon.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.